All right, man. Peace. So now this is a very interesting movie. I won't say it was particularly great. It's a movie that Kevin Costner did back in the early 90s about the 19th century lawman Wyatt Earp. I thought the film was a little bit too long, but, it is what it is. He also had the misfortune of coming out with a movie about Wyatt Earp at the same time, or basically the same time as Kurt Russell did. Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer did a movie called Tombstone, which to me was far more entertaining. Val Kilmer, I thought, had a phenomenal performance, but that's neither here nor there. Point being is this. There's a great scene in this film where Wyatt Earp is basically played by Kevin Costner. He's basically going to give the rundown to his brothers about a mining business that he's trying to get going in Tombstone, Arizona, along with his brothers. All of their wives also happen to be in attendance. And you're going to see how the wives are trying to become confederate against the business proposition or the business plan of Wyatt Earp, because it's not really reaping any benefits. It's not producing at this moment. And it's just going to go more into the theme that I constantly try to tell you brothers about, that when you're trying to transition, when you're trying to establish your own thing, you really shouldn't be married. Because the woman, for the most part, is trained to be a naysayer when you're in the midst of trying to build something. It's not necessarily a bad trait. Once again, the woman is trained, or part of me is in her DNA, to want to be provided for, to have stability. That's in their nature. This is why you have to think 4, 5, 6 steps ahead when you're trying to establish something new, something, on new territory, something that may be foreign ground in regards to establishing a business. You really don't want to have a wife. You don't want to be in a relationship yet, right? You do that once everything has been established. But anyway, one of the wives of Wyatt Earp's brothers is going to try to, buck up against his statement. And he's pretty much going to tell her the cold hard truth about wives. So let's see what he has to say.
All right, we're about 50-50 between the mines that are producing and mines that are
worthless.
So he said, we're about 50-50 between the mines that are producing, and then one of the wives cuts in and says the other mines are worthless.
They're not producing.
In other words, we ain't seen a dime's profit from the lot of them.
Not in other words, James. Those are the words.
Incomes, we got our salaries, plus James' sampling room. Got a half interest in the Oriental Faro Bank and a quarter interest in one at the Crystal Palace.
Well, from the sound of it, you think we'd have some money by now.
I'm afraid we're about as rich as lawmen are ever going to be. When you get through with all the talk, that's what we are.
Well, that's one of his brothers. Right now, he's starting to feel like the business is not going to reap benefits. And that's fine, but that's something that he should have told Wyatt in private. You see, the other brothers are looking at him now, including Wyatt. All right, there are certain things that you don't say around women, even if that's how you feel. Because the woman will look for any form of dissension in the ranks of men and try to capitalize off of it to cause more confusion in your ranks.
That's good enough for me, sweetheart. I married you for your looks.
Guess you lost out all around.
You see, his wife jumped in. That's why she's smiling at him. His wife jumped in and said, it's okay if you're just a lawman because I married you for your looks. In other words, I didn't marry you so that I could follow you around or follow you and your brothers around as you guys try to establish a business that I believe is never going to come, is never going to reap. It's never going to come to fruition. It's never going to be successful. Does she love him? Yeah, most likely she does. Maybe she's actually very happy in their current life. The point being is that type of message is counterproductive to what Wyatt Earp is trying to establish with his brothers.
We have close to $14,000 cash between us.
Well, why don't we just split it up and everybody do what they like?
What we've got to decide is how to invest it.
You see how he just ignored her when she said that? She said, let's just split it up and everybody do what they want. Why is that? Because, most likely, certain things are implied. Of course, this is a movie, so you have to read into certain things. When screenwriters write certain things, they try to convey accurate forms of human dynamics. So you have to read in between the lines on certain things. When a woman is speaking like that, oftentimes it's because she has control over the husband, and the fact that her husband has now become part of this conglomerate, this group, is taking away her ability to influence her husband. So now she basically just wants to, her and her husband to get their share of the money and go off on their own. Wyatt Earp, of course, has ignored her because he has a focus. Much like the Rockefellers, right? An example of a group of brothers who established a very successful business are the Rockefellers.
Invested.
And of course, the Rothschilds.
Don't you ignore me, Wyatt. If somebody voted you king of this family, I didn't hear about it. You dragged us all down here with a lot of talk about owning businesses and getting rich. And now here you are, a year later, a bunch of lawmen and bartenders just like before.
You see what she's doing? She's trying to draw away or take away from a lot of the energy that he has as a man. This is why she came up to him and stepped up face to face. She's very resentful at the control that he has over his brother, her husband, because she's vying for control over his brother, her husband. That's all it's about. That's why she stepped in and said, who voted you to be king of this family? I'm going to rewind it back one more time just so that you can see how he ignored her, because that's what you're supposed to do with females, particularly ones that are not your wife. All right. He's basically saying, look, that's you are your husband's problem. If you have a grievance, you go speak to your husband. You don't speak to me. Obviously, she's out of order because she stepped up a lot like the modern day female will today into a man's face, in the delusional attempt, to start a confrontation. Let me rewind it back.
Bessie.
Everybody do what they like.
What we've got to decide is how to invest it.
Don't you ignore me, Wyatt. If somebody voted you king of this family, I didn't hear about it. You dragged us all down here with a lot of talk about owning businesses and getting rich. And now here you are, a year later, a bunch of lawmen and bartenders just like before.
Bessie, some things haven't worked out like we'd like. It's nobody's fault.
Exactly. Look, once again, when you're trying to establish anything for yourself, there's going to be little bumps that you hit in the road. You have to stay, you have to stay the course. Believe in yourself. Believe in your vision. You brothers out there who might want to start your own business. Maybe you went to a trade school. You might have learned to be a plumber, a mechanic. These are things that you should be focused on. You might have to start an apprenticeship. You might have to start working in somebody else's shop or their business. You learn the business and then you start your own. Learn how it works. Start your own to the best of your ability. And once again, you should probably try to do so before you get into a serious relationship with a woman. All right? Just because things don't work, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was somebody's fault. Sometimes life is about learning. All right? All of the time, life is about learning. Okay? You make little missteps here and there in your process to become a better person in every facet of your life. But the main thing is that you have to have a vision, have a goal, stay the course, and be positive. And anybody who is not being positive on that path, on that course, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting them, if they're still willfully being negative, they have to go.
We didn't all come out here to split up stakes.
Trying to stick together and build something.
Why? What?
Exactly. You see that? Even the brother said, look, we didn't come out here to split up stakes. We came out here because we're making an investment. Investment takes time and it takes sacrifice. All right. The younger brother there, I believe his name is Morgan. For those of you who know about the Wyatt Earp story, he ends up getting killed by the Cowboys after the events at the OK Corral. That's something that you brothers could look up on your own. Like they say, look, we didn't come out here to split up stakes. Okay, we're trying to build something. We're trying to build something together. That's the sentiment of the brothers. When you have that, you understand that the bond is a blood bond. So you don't necessarily, hopefully, have to worry about men stabbing you in the back. Hopefully. Okay? This is something that the wives don't understand, particularly her, because once again, her focus is to have control over her husband and over the household. The other wives feel the same way, as she's going to imply, because that's the essential nature of the woman. And like I said, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. They want to have their husbands to themselves. And for all intents and purposes, they do. But, when you're trying to establish an enterprise, people are going to work together. It's going to take a little sacrifice. Sometimes you got to fall back. But all of this is due to the fact that they're married. So they have, they have dual allegiances, right? Like Paul said, the married man is going to look after the wants of the wife. Okay?
Why? Why does it always have to be the brothers? The brothers together. Why can't it just be you and me, James?
You see, the women, all those other broads feel the same way. They just don't have the courage to say it. And back then, a woman mostly had to stand her place. Every once in a while, you had a silly bitch that went rogue back then. But, for the most part, these broads stayed in their place. Why? Because if they didn't, they would get the backhand. Right? Like my man gave Sanaa Lathan in the Family That Prays video.
Well, they're all afraid to say anything, but they're thinking the same thing as me. We are your wives. Don't we ever count more than the damn brothers?
No, Bessie, you don't.
See, a man like Wyatt Earp, he plays a man who really has a lot of alpha male energy. You see, he didn't argue with her. He didn't try to go back and forth with her. When she came up to confront him, he did not look at her until he had to, until she asked a question that needed to be answered succinctly and quickly, so that she can get an understanding of the terms of engagement here. No, you're not on my level. No, you're not going to stipulate anything to me. Okay? No, that's not going to happen. You have a place. I'm sure that your husband loves you and you love him. Stay in your place. You're not my wife, so please don't speak to me unless it's something constructive.
Wives come and go. That's the plain truth of it.
See what he said? Wives come and go. Let me rewind it back to get some context.
Me, James. Well, they're all afraid to say anything, but they're thinking the same thing as me. We are your wives. Don't we ever count more than the damn brothers?
No, Bessie, you don't. Wives come and go. That's the plain truth of it. They run off. They die.
You see that, brothers? Hey, a lot of times when you have a certain mentality, when you think at a certain wavelength, you like to just stay quiet because you know that if you're prompted to speak, you're going to speak the truth. And the truth is a cold, hard thing. The truth is something that separates people. It does not bring them together. And the truth is something that people think that they want to hear until they hear it. That's why you have that slogan, don't poke the bear. Because when you do, the bear is going to turn around, it's going to maul you. Okay? Now, let me say this also. As I've already stated, it's very common for a woman to want her husband all to herself. So this is why I've stated numerous times already on this video, what they're doing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not something that they should be raked over the coals for, meaning the wives, to want their husbands all to themselves. They probably do not want to live on a commune with a bunch of other families. They want to have their own, establish their own with their husbands. That's understandable. This is why I said that it's incumbent upon men, it's incumbent upon cats. If you are trying to start a business or a venture, if you're trying to go into business with other men, family members, your brothers, that you establish that before you get into a major relationship or a serious relationship with a woman, because these issues are going to arise. I mean, like I've already stated, as Paul tells us, a married man is going to look after the wants of his wife. All right. And that makes it very, very hard to have a relationship. Or I should say it makes it very hard for you to establish a business if your wife is against establishing the business and you love her. I'm going to let this run a little bit because this female who's running back into the house, the reason why she's hurt is because Wyatt stated that, wives, they run off and they die. This person here is a prostitute who basically is Wyatt Earp's living woman. She's dealing with health issues, and she senses her own mortality. So when he said that was looked at as being very insensitive. And that's another thing. Look, man, we always have different dynamics with different people that we meet. No two relationships are going to be the same. There are some females that you're going to deal with that you care about a little less than others. if you're in a relationship with a female and you disregard her feelings to the point where you will say anything to her and denigrate her or talk to her in a verbally abusive, cavalier fashion just for kicks, then you don't need to be with that woman. You don't need to be with her, because that's just an outlet to be negative, you know. And this movie, just like it's about his relationship with his brothers and the shootout at the OK Corral, it's also a story about how he found a woman that he actually wanted to build something with. He didn't want to build anything with this female. Why? Because she basically was just a concubine that he was carrying around. You know, but there's a way that you treat the concubine and the wife. But he wasn't feeling this, bro. So he should have just, you know, told her to kick rocks from much earlier instead of talking to her like a piece of shit. But anyway.
You're a cold man, Wyatt Earp. God forgive.
Yeah, you know what? The truth is cold. All right? The truth is a cold thing.
You are cold.
Morgan.
Let me say this too. The spirit of leadership is a cold spirit, man. Okay, the spirit of wisdom is a cold spirit. Why is that? Because your brain functions on a level where you see things very, very clearly. And most people in life do not see things clearly. So they tend to gravitate towards their feelings, their emotions, and whatever propaganda is surrounding them. The spirit of wisdom and intelligence is a cold, cold spirit. It's something that oftentimes will alienate people, but it's the only spirit that you can possibly have if you're in a leadership position, because you have to make difficult decisions, not just for you, but for other people. All right. I mean, even when you read the scriptures in Luke, the 19th chapter, Christ refers to himself in a parable as an austere man. All right. To be austere means to be extremely serious, sometimes grim. OK. The spirit of a king. That's why a lot of times you see in many historical or ancient cultures, the veneration of the serpent. The serpent represents wisdom. OK. It represents wisdom. The serpent or the dragon. It represents wisdom. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. That's another video for another day. All right. That's why if you read John, the 3rd chapter, Christ even likens himself unto the copper serpent that Moses lifted up in the wilderness. All right. Why is that? Because he had the ultimate level of wisdom.
I'm sorry if I hurt you today.
No, you're not. You're not sorry. You said what you wanted to say. You don't care about that hoe because you got the spirit of a serpent. You know, brothers, if you ever get to that level where you have the spirit of a serpent, you're going to find that sometimes it can be as much of a curse as it is a blessing. Because sometimes it could put a certain spirit on you that, it might alienate you from certain people. That's a part of life. All right. But yes, when you have that spirit of a serpent, it's also going to save you from a lot of silly shit that you might get caught up in your life. Right now, this character of Wyatt Earp, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with this woman, because he knows that he does not love her. He knows that there's no long range plan with her. And he's trying to figure out how he can build things with his brothers, and leave her behind, because he has no long range goals or plans with her. That's why I always tell cats, man, be honest with the woman. Save yourself and her a lot of aggravation.
That was not my intention.
Let's have children, Wyatt.
Maddie.
You're always talking about family. Well, let's have children. A family of our own. Our children. Yours and mine.
He don't want to have no children with you. He doesn't look at you as wife material. All right? You just somebody for him to carry around while he's on his trek out west. He just views you as a sperm receptacle. That's the truth of the matter. All right? This character, and I think I may have mentioned it already, her name is Maddie Blaylock. All right. She's a person that you're familiar with. If you've seen the Wyatt Earp and the Tombstone films, she had a drug dependency. Back then, it was known as opiates. Today, of course, you still have it. It's known as opioids or heroin. She had a major issue with it, ended up dying at a very young age from depression after Wyatt Earp eventually left her for the female who's going to be introduced later on in the film. Once again, these type of things, they happen in life. As you can see, he is what you would call a quote-unquote cold-hearted man, or a person who has the spirit of a serpent. Okay? The serpent, a lot of times, we've come to associate the imagery of the serpent with something that is with something that's wicked, because when we read the scriptures and we read about the serpent, the red dragon, in the book of Revelation, the 12th and 13th chapter, people automatically think that the imagery of the serpent is wicked. Remember, everything has a left hand understanding, and meaning the wicked understanding, and you have the right hand or the righteous understanding or symbolism. Right? There's always a left and a right hand symbolical nature to everything. Right? Just as Christ was known as a lion, Satan was also known as a roaring lion. When you read First Peter the 5th chapter. Right? So the serpent represents wisdom. It represents being wise, having insight, and also being cold-hearted. All right. And sometimes you have to be that way in order to get to where you want to get to and make your point exactly how you want to make it. But anyway, let's see what he has to say.
I'm too old for it. For I dry up inside. I can feel it, Wyatt. Part of me is starting to die.
Did you see what she said? She said she wants to have kids before she dries up inside because she feels that part of her is starting to die. Why is that? That happens to women when they get around her age, early to mid 30s. Once again, the woman was put on the earth to be a helpmeet, a consort to the man. Okay? And you see that today with many of these modern day females. They get in their mid 30s and they start to, and I always say this, they're always talking about the midlife crises that men go through. These women, they go through multiple crises throughout their life. Okay? They go through the one where they hit puberty and their body starts to develop. They go through the one where they're out on their own for the first time around college. Then they go through the one where they're, when they're about to hit 30. Then they go through the one where they get past 30 and they start to age a little bit. Then they go through the one at about 45 when they start to really lose their looks at an accelerated rate. Right? They go through a series of landmarks in their life where they hit certain landmarks in their life where they start to change, developmental periods of change, turmoil per se in their life. That you have to be a man of wisdom to help them through and suffer. All right. This woman wants to have a child with him or children with him because she wants him to take her seriously. He already knows in his mind, in his spirit, because he has the spirit of a serpent, the spirit of wisdom, that there's no future for him and her. None. All right. He has no intention on having a child with him because he doesn't have the spirit to have a child willy-nilly with a female that he has no true feelings for. And you have certain men like that. Now, you have a lot of guys out here who don't give a shit. They'll just knock up a broad. And that's why you have so much confusion out here. But anyway, let's see what he has to say.
Too late.
Children aren't a part of the bargain, Maddie. They never were.
You see, so he basically just told her straight, look, this what we have right here, it has a final destination and we're nearing it. That's basically what he's letting her know. He's basically letting her know that her time is limited. It's basically just a matter of time until he finds somebody that he likes more than her. And you see, he looked her dead in her face and, he told her how he felt. He told her what it was. And she just had to deal with that. Okay. Now, are there more tactful ways to get your message across? Are there more considerate ways to communicate your message to the woman? There definitely are. But he's just somebody who has a very, very strong, his character, I should say, has a very, very strong alpha male personality. But it's up to cats. But I always look, man. At the end of the day, keep it as real as possible. All right, from the start, so that people don't try to act like you's putting on this front, this act. And a lot of times, the female will try to put certain attributes onto you, so that it's subconsciously she'll do that, so that if the shit don't work out, she could try to make all these claims that you wasn't who you tried to act. No. All it is that you're not good enough. And a lot of times it's hard for the female to face the fact that she's not good enough. This society is always telling women that they're better than men. And when she realizes that she's with a man on a certain level, it's traumatizing for her when she realizes that she's not on that man's level and that she's not good enough. That's why as a man, you have to know when you're with a woman who's not good enough and extricate her as soon as possible. But anyway, I just thought this scene was very interesting. I happened to catch it. So I said, let me do a little video on this. But anyway, peace.